Good day and welcome back to the Family Cyber Clinic. This week we're going to be going over tips for parents who have discovered that their child or children have bypassed parental controls. We have discussed parental controls on this platform and we're convinced, following feedback from parents, that this has been useful to you. But sadly, we've also found, worryingly so, that kids are researching, discovering, and bypassing these controls, and the internet is feeding them with this information. And of course, with the lockdown guidelines that have been in place for a while, most of our kids, or some of our kids, have been binging on this stuff. So it's time for the clinic to address it, and I'm hoping that one, two, in fact all parents will benefit from this video. The clinic is obviously concerned and would like to share the things that it believes that parents can do right now to discourage this behavior. Thankfully, there are things we can still do, so it's not totally out of our control. But before we dig in further, I would like to remind those who are visiting this platform for the very first time to consider subscribing and clicking on the bell so that you'll be alerted when new content is uploaded every week. I will also ask you to share this content, like it, if it's beneficial to you, okay? All right, so let's dig in. But before I do that, I would love to list several techniques that I know exist that our teens, our kids, our children are using right now to bypass parental controls. We'll only be focusing on one of those techniques, and then perhaps in part 2, part 3, and further videos, we'll cover the other bits, okay? All right, so the first technique that I want to alert parents that kids are using currently to bypass parental controls is using a VPN. That's our number one technique. The second, using an application or photo vault. The third, installing and uninstalling apps at intervals. The fourth, using an old device. The fifth, using browsers in private or incognito mode. The sixth, using browsers instead of applications. The seventh, guessing or setting guessable passwords. Of course, our kids will break those passwords, and of course that's the easiest way to bypass a parental control. And then the last is disabling location trackers. Okay, we've shared videos on location trackers and what you can do, so please click on the info card for more information. So our focus today would be on VPNs. Okay, so when accessing the internet through a VPN, your filters see a different IP address, so it's unable to apply the rules. This means that your child can use a VPN to easily bypass the settings you've put in place to prevent them from accessing, restricted content or restricted platforms. All right, so for those who don't know what VPN is, it's a virtual private network. Virtual private network. It is generally used by staff. We call them in the marketplace teleworkers. It allows users to remotely access company assets via their computer. You basically get the same experience as if you're in the office, but from home it tunnels, it encrypts the traffic, so it's protected. And companies use that to encourage remote working, and of course it's been quite useful during this pandemic and the lockdown rules that have been in place. But unfortunately, the internet at the moment is teaching young ones how to bypass parental controls by masking their IP addresses. So when the parental control is applied, it's applied against an IP address. Now, if the VPN masks that IP address, then the parental controls are null and void. So you find that kids have been encouraged to use these VPNs to bypass these controls and access, inappropriate content. And that's sad, really sad. Now, the question is, what can you do as a parent to discourage or prevent this? You'll be glad to know that there is something you can do, okay? So the first thing you will need to do is go to your son or daughter's smartphone and via the phone browser, do a search for VPN. The names are exactly that. So if you do a search, if you get a VPN application back in the search results, then it's clear, especially because we know that our children are not working like we are. There's no reason why they have a VPN on their system unless they've mistakenly installed it. But ultimately, if a VPN shows up in the search results, it means that it's on there. And if you have used parental control applications like Google Wellbeing or Google Family Link or Apple's Screen Time, then you can block that VPN application. Of course, the very, very cool thing to do then is to delete it because it's not legitimately installed, if you like. Okay, so that is one way, to discover and address the issue of having a VPN on your smartphone or your son or daughter's smartphone. But the second thing you can do, and it's the one that the clinic encourages, is that you communicate with your young one. The moment they start looking to bypass parental controls, there's a huge problem. And so getting more applications to, prevent accessing that sort of content is not going to be sufficient. So it is time to speak to your young one. It's time to sit down and agree digital boundaries. Get them to understand the reason why you're doing what you're doing. And needless to say, as the bill payer of these phones that our kids own, you're culpable if illicit content is found on these devices. So it's important that you are the parent, you take full responsibility. But in doing that, you dialogue with them. I hear people say they're friends with their kids. That's just wrong. You're a parent. You have full responsibility to direct that young chap or lady, okay? So you take ownership. Sit down, have a discussion with your young one. Make them understand why you're doing what you're doing. And then, of course, cut them some slack every now and then. I'm not saying you should allow them look at stuff they're not allowed to look, but I'm just saying cut them some slack. Allow them perhaps an hour extra, on the internet, and just mix it up. But ultimately, you are the one in charge. So communication is quite key. In fact, it trumps all the other things. Communication is key. All right. So I hope that's met you well. I hope that it addresses your concern. When we release the part 2 of this series, we'll address the other techniques that are on the list that I read out earlier. Okay? Good stuff. It's not hopeless. We can still arrest it, but you just need to be consuming this content. And if you have any queries, you have any questions, please use the comments. Send emails. Engage with me. Okay? Good stuff. As we do each week, we are having another live Q&A on the 27th of June 2020 at noon. Remember, I intimated us a little while ago, 2 videos I think ago, that we were changing the format somewhat. So instead of uploading 4 videos in a month, We'll do 3 uploads and 1 live Q&A that will last between 30 minutes and an hour. And I urged you to send in your questions so that we will have, questions perhaps before to deal with, or on the day itself, we'll deal with questions that you may have. I'm excited, like I told you, I'm so excited about the live Q&A. It gives me an opportunity to engage with you. Make it a date, spread the word. Tell those who are connected to you that there's a live Q&A where they have an opportunity to ask questions. I look forward to seeing you, okay? Good stuff. The PowerPoint for this week: the know-it-alls don't like being told what to do. They avoid the company of wise men and women. I'm your host, Cyber Pastor Lawrence Eden. Until next week, God bless and goodbye.